Marx was a scientist. He analyzed things. And there are many good things that we can take from his analysis and apply it today. You simply cannot dismiss something out of whole cloth. So let's look at the word international community. You hear it all the time. Obama uses it all the time. The international community condemns Iran for supposedly trying to develop weapons-grade plutonium. Well, what does the international community mean in actual English? It means the United States and the handful of countries that go along with US policy. That's the international community. When the international community is heard, for example, on Cuba, it's completely ignored, as it was last week when once again the international community voted 190 to 2 with 3 abstentions to end the illegal US blockade of Cuba. That's the international community. You know how that was reported in the New York Times? Page 26, 2 paragraphs. You could barely see it. And in the electronic media, complete silence. Who cares? The international community. And so who are the 2 great countries that voted against the ending of the sanctions and embargo against Cuba? Of course, Washington and its closest ally, Tel Aviv. There were abstentions from those that abstained in the vote were such powerhouses as Palau, the Tonga Islands, and one other South Pacific island group I can't quite recall. Rule of law, Security Council resolutions, international law. The US always talks about international law when it's pointing the finger at a designated enemy, like Iran or North Korea or Syria, whoever the enemy du jour is. You know, now it's Yemen, tomorrow it'll be Somalia, it's Pakistan, you know, it's whatever group that is convenient. International law applies to them, not to the master. See, that's one great thing when you're the emperor of an empire. You can control the discourse when you have a compliant and obedient media. And you can get them to talk about, gee, why isn't Iran following this resolution? Why isn't Iran doing this, that, or the other thing? Why is Pakistan doing this? But never focus attention on the master. The master is always deflecting attention. He's in a kind of cordon sanitaire, as they say in French. A kind of area that's roped off, that is immune from any kind of criticism or analysis. Here's some other examples. For example, we have leaders and statesmen. And now I'm going to do a we and they type of thing. And they have warlords and are led by hardliners. We have governments and administrations. They have regimes. Our people live in nice neighborhoods. Their people live in strongholds. They come out of nests and caves. Our armed forces fight fair and square. Their terrorist commanders drive their guerrilla mujahideen to conduct ambushes and sniping attacks and use human shields. As if in a guerrilla war, the Taliban or whatever formation is fighting the most powerful military in the history of the world, as Barack Obama announced. Supposedly, they should come out in the open with their, guns and small arms and wave to the helicopters above and say, okay, let's have this is like, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday at the OK Corral, fighting the Clanton brothers. It's not that at all. You've got people who have to use protection. They have to hide in buildings. Of course they do. How can they compete with the overwhelming force of the United States? Yet the media always point this out. And they use this term brazen ambush. Today, the Taliban carried out a brazen ambush. What does that mean? The United States apparently never carries out a brazen attack when it incinerates a wedding party, or blows a mosque to smithereens, or blows up a madrasa, which is a religious Islamic seminary, and then afterwards goes and throws a few dollars at the families of the victims and says, yes, sorry about that, you know, it was a mistake. You know how many mistakes the U.S. has committed in Pakistan, for example, where I've been, you know, a number of times recently? So many that this country, which is one of the poorest on the face of the earth, and has just undergone a huge catastrophe with about 30% of the country underwater. The United States is so despised and hated in Pakistan, across the board, across the political spectrum, that when the U.S. gives aid to the victims of the flood, which I celebrate, I think that's a right thing to do, we should be doing, we should be a humanitarian superpower, not a military superpower. The Pakistanis have to cover over the American flag and the words, this is a gift from the people of the United States of America. Because the Pakistanis, as desperate as they are, will not accept any aid coming from the United States. And why is this? You have to ask the question. It is because of endless bombings of Pakistan. The manipulation of Pakistan over the years, supporting U.S. support for one dictator after another, starting with Ayub Khan and Yahya Khan, General Zia-ul-Haq, General Pervez Musharraf, and now to kind of top it off, I mean, the most corrupt, the most venal of all, he's not in the military, he's Benazir Bhutto's widower, Asif Ali Zardari, who in the 1980s was known as Mr. 10%. When he was a member of his wife's government, he would skim off 10% of every single contract coming into the Pakistani government. When his wife became prime minister again in the 1990s, he had to adjust for inflation and other economic problems, and he became Mr. 20%. He reportedly has billions in dollars of personal wealth. When most of his country was underwater and people were drowning, he was staying at an $11,000 a night suite in London at a 7-star hotel. And these are the people that we call our allies, our trusted friends. And now, I mean, and Obama is now today in neighboring India. What's he talking about there? Well, he said we have to eliminate the scourge of terrorism. Okay, let's eliminate the scourge of terrorism. Let's find out why there is terrorism. Why are people carrying out suicide attacks? I mean, are they all just like off-the-wall fanatics? Might there be some connection with U.S. foreign policy? Gee, I don't know. That sounds, you know, very problematic. You don't want to go in that direction. Let's just stick with the standard story. They are Muslims. Muslims are fanatics. Their holy book preaches fanaticism. Islam is a religion of violence. Unlike Christianity, of course, which has, as you all know, has no history of violence over 2,000 years, or the people who invoke the name of Christianity. And what is he doing there? He didn't talk about eliminating the scourge of poverty in India, where 800 million people live on less than 20 rupees a day. That's 50 cents. This is not a poverty that I can describe to you in any way that you can possibly understand unless you see it with your own eyes. So it's not about eliminating that scourge, it's about eliminating the scourge of terrorism, because that's the most important thing to Washington and part of Washington's agenda. Of course, Obama is doing one other thing in India. Can anyone guess?
Harley Davidson just
selling weapons. India is a burgeoning market for the military-industrial complex. And so he's there as the other president of the United States. You know, again, Marxists say, President of the United States is the chief executive officer of the ruling class. I believe that to be true. Maybe you find that, you know, inflammatory or somewhat, you know, problematic. I think it's true. And the evidence points in that direction. And here's one example of that. The president going to New Delhi and selling weapons, and in tow, he's got the CEOs of Boeing and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and Honeywell and United Technologies and Raytheon and all the rest. So he's there greasing the skids with the Indian government. And many of these arms sales, incidentally, are subsidized by you, the American people. Foreign aid to Israel, which helps to perpetuate the occupation, is made possible by taxpayer money that is funneled through various State Department schemes that end up in Israel. Most of this is unknown. The history of the modern Middle East, particularly the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is basically unknown to Americans. Most people are still living in the Exodus kind of, Leon Uris mindset. A land without people for a people without a land. A wonderful slogan. There's a little problem with it. It's a complete falsehood. There was a people there, there are people there, there is a civilization there, there was a civilization there for hundreds of years, for millennia. We don't know the basic facts